They say retirement is for rest, but for Evelyn, it was just the beginning. A society gala, a poisoned rose, and a web of deceit. Could the 70-year-old florist really untangle a billionaire's deadly secret? The black sedan pulled up to the community center just as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the cracked pavement. Inside the car, billionaire CEO Jonathan Pierce adjusted his tie and checked his watch. Another charity visit, another photo opportunity. At 42, he had built Pierce Industries from nothing into a global empire. But these community outreach events always felt like just another business meeting. His assistant, Trevor, turned around from the front seat with a concerned expression. "Sir, there's been a slight change." The center director asked if we could give one of the children a ride home. "Her mother's car broke down and she lives on our route back to the office." Jonathan sighed quietly. "Fine, but make it quick." Moments later, a small black girl climbed into the back seat beside him. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, with bright, intelligent eyes and her hair pulled back in neat braids. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a small backpack covered in butterfly stickers. "Thank you for the ride, mister," she said politely, settling into the plush leather seat. "You're welcome," Jonathan replied, already pulling out his phone to check emails. "What's your name?" "Naomi Johnson," she answered, then grew quiet as she looked around the expensive interior of the car. As they drove through the city streets, Jonathan's mind was already on his next meeting. The merger with Peterson Holdings was finally moving forward after months of negotiations. Everything had to be perfect. His competitors had been trying to sabotage the deal for weeks, but he was too careful, too smart to let them win. Trevor reached back with a bottle of water, the same brand they always kept stocked in the corporate office. "Sir, you mentioned being thirsty earlier. Here's your usual." Jonathan reached for the bottle without looking up from his phone, but suddenly felt small hands grab his wrist. Naomi had launched herself forward, her tiny hand covering his mouth while she shook her head frantically. "Don't drink it," she whispered urgently, her eyes wide with fear. Trevor looked confused. "What's wrong with her?" Jonathan gently moved Naomi's hand away from his mouth, studying her frightened expression. Something in her eyes told him this wasn't a game. "What did you see, Naomi?" She pointed at the water bottle with a trembling finger. "That man. I saw him put something in it. Something bad." The car fell silent except for the hum of traffic outside. Jonathan felt his heart rate increase as he looked from the innocent bottle of water to the terrified child beside him. "What man?" he asked quietly. "The one with the gray hair and the scar on his chin. He was at the center today talking to the lady at the front desk. I was hiding under the snack table because I dropped my crayon and I saw him pour something from a tiny bottle into the water bottles on the cart." Trevor's face had gone pale. "Sir, that sounds like Vincent Crawford. He was at the center today for their board meeting." Vincent Crawford, Jonathan's biggest competitor and the man who had been fighting the Peterson merger for months. The man who stood to lose millions if the deal went through. Naomi continued, her voice getting stronger as she realized the adults were listening. "After he did it, he gave the bottles to a lady in a black suit. She looked just like the lady who handed you this one earlier." Jonathan's blood ran cold. Trevor had gotten the water from Crawford's assistant at the community center. They had planned this perfectly, knowing Jonathan always accepted refreshments during his charity visits. "Trevor, pull over now," Jonathan commanded, his voice deadly calm. As the car stopped, Jonathan looked at Naomi with new respect. This 8-year-old girl had just saved his life, and she didn't even fully understand what she had prevented. "Naomi," he said gently, "you may have just saved my life. That was very brave of you to speak up." She nodded seriously. "My mama always says to speak up when something's wrong, even if it's scary." Jonathan smiled for the first time that day, a real smile that reached his eyes. "Your mama is a very wise woman." But even as he praised her courage, his mind was racing. If Crawford was desperate enough to attempt murder, Naomi was now in terrible danger. She was the only witness to his crime, and Crawford wouldn't hesitate to hurt a child to protect himself. "Trevor, call Detective Morrison immediately and get us to the estate." "Not the office. We need to think about this carefully." As they drove toward his private estate outside the city, Jonathan found himself studying the brave little girl beside him. She sat quietly now, seeming to understand that something very serious had happened. Her small act of courage had created a ripple that would change everything. But first, they needed to get somewhere safe. Crawford would realize his plan had failed soon enough. And when he did, Naomi would become his next target. The thought of anyone hurting this innocent child filled Jonathan with a protective rage he had never felt before. "Naomi," he said softly, "I'm going to make sure you and your mama are safe. You have my word." She looked up at him with those bright, trusting eyes. "Are you going to help us?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I'm going to help you in every way I can." As the city lights began to twinkle in the evening darkness, Jonathan Pierce realized that his carefully controlled world was about to change forever. A little girl's bravery had not only saved his life, but had also awakened something in his heart he thought he had lost long ago. The capacity to truly care about someone else's future. The secure conference room at Pierce Industries buzzed with urgent activity as Detective Morrison spread crime scene photos across the mahogany table. Jonathan sat at the head of the table, his usual composure replaced by barely controlled anger. Beside him, Naomi sat in a chair that seemed far too big for her small frame, while her mother, Carla, held her hand tightly. The lab results came back faster than expected, Detective Morrison announced, holding up a clear evidence bag containing the water bottle. Chrysant, a single sip would have killed you within hours, Mr. Pierce. Carla gasped and pulled Naomi closer. She was a beautiful woman in her 30s with the same intelligent eyes as her daughter and an air of quiet strength that came from years of working multiple jobs to support them both. I can't believe someone would try to. She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Jonathan, security chief Bernard, leaned forward. Sir, we've confirmed that Vincent Crawford was at the community center from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. yesterday. The timing matches exactly with what Naomi described. Naomi had been quiet through most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. Can I tell you exactly what I saw? Detective Morrison smiled encouragingly. Of course, sweetheart. Take your time. Naomi straightened in her chair, her voice clear and steady. I was coloring at the art table, but my purple crayon rolled under the snack table. When I crawled under to get it, I saw the man's feet first. He had shiny black shoes, and one of them had a scratch on the toe. Jonathan found himself impressed by her attention to detail. Most adults wouldn't have noticed such specifics. I stayed under the table because Mama always says not to interrupt adults when they're talking. Naomi continued. The man was talking to Mrs. Henderson, the center director, about donating money. But when she walked away to get papers from her office, he did something weird. She paused, looking around the room at all the serious adult faces watching her. Go on, baby, Carl encouraged gently. He pulled out a tiny bottle from his pocket like the ones Mama uses for her medicine. But this one had clear liquid in it. He looked around to make sure nobody was watching. Then he opened 3 water bottles from the cart and poured some of the liquid into each one. Detective Morrison made notes as she spoke. Did you see what he did with the bottles after that? He closed them real careful and put them back on the cart. Then he wrote something on a piece of paper and stuck it under one of the bottles. When the lady in the black suit came to get refreshments for the meeting, she took that bottle with the paper. Trevor, who had been silent until now, spoke up with a shaky voice. That's exactly how it happened. Crawford's assistant handed me the bottle personally, said it was from their private stock because the Ent's water wasn't cold enough. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed the calculated nature of the attempted murder. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was a carefully planned assassination. Bernard pulled up security footage on his tablet. We've been tracking Crawford's movements. After leaving the community center, he went straight to his office and had a 2-hour meeting with his legal team. He was preparing for the merger to fail. Jonathan stood and walked to the window looking out at the city skyline. He knew that if I died, the Peterson deal would collapse. My death would throw the company into chaos, and he'd be able to swoop in and acquire Peterson Holdings for half the price. But Daddy isn't dead because I stopped him, Naomi said proudly. Then immediately looked embarrassed at calling Jonathan Daddy. Jonathan turned back to the room, his expression softening as he looked at the little girl who had saved his life. That's right, Naomi, you stopped a very bad man from doing something terrible. Carla shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Mr. Pierce, I appreciate everything you're doing to help us, but maybe we should just go home now. I don't want Naomi getting too involved in this. Mama, Naomi protested. We can't go home. What if the bad man comes looking for me? Detective Morrison nodded grimly. The child has a point, Mrs. Johnson. Crawford now knows his plan failed, and Naomi is the only witness who can connect him to the crime. You're both in serious danger, which is why you're both coming to stay at my estate, Jonathan said firmly. I have 24-hour security, and it's completely private. You'll be safe there while we build the case against Crawford. Carla shook her head. Mr. Pierce, we can't just move into your house. We barely know you, Mama. He's trying to help us, Naomi said quietly. And he's nice. He didn't get mad when I grabbed his mouth in the car. Jonathan knelt down beside Naomi's chair, speaking directly to her. Naomi, would you like to see my library? I have over 50 books, including some about butterflies like the ones on your backpack. Her eyes lit up. Really? 50 books? Really? And there's a chess set in there, too. Do you know how to play chess? A little bit. Mama taught me, but she says I'm too smart for my own good. Jonathan chuckled. There's no such thing as being too smart, Naomi. Smart people change the world. He looked up at Carla, seeing the worry and pride battling in her expression. Mrs. Johnson, I understand your hesitation, but right now your safety is more important than anything else. Stay at my estate until Crawford is arrested, please. Carla looked between her daughter's excited face and Jonathan's sincere expression. Finally she sighed. Just until he's arrested, but we pay our own way somehow. The only payment I need is knowing you're both safe, Jonathan replied. Naomi saved my life. The least I can do is keep her safe in return. As they prepared to leave for the estate, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that this was about more than just gratitude. Watching Nekome's curious questions and Carla's protective strength, he felt something awakening in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in his adult life, he wanted to be part of a family. But first, they had to survive Vincent Crawford's desperate attempts to cover his tracks. The Pierce estate sat on 50 acres of rolling hills outside the city, surrounded by an 8-foot security fence and monitored by cameras that Bernard personally oversaw. As their car pulled through the iron gates, Naomi pressed her face to the window in amazement. "Mama, look at that house. It's like a castle." Carla had to admit the estate was breathtaking. The main house was a stunning blend of modern and traditional architecture with large windows that seemed to invite the outside in. Perfectly manicured gardens stretched in every direction, and she could see a small pond with a fountain in the distance. "This is too much," she murmured, feeling overwhelmed. Jonathan, who had been quiet during the drive, turned to her with understanding in his eyes. "I know it seems excessive, but this is just my home. I hope you'll feel comfortable here." A kind-faced woman in her 50s appeared at the front door as they approached. "Mr. Pierce, welcome home. I prepared the blue suite for your guests. Mrs. Chin, this is Carla and Naomi Johnson. They'll be staying with us for a while. Please make sure they have everything they need." Mrs. Chin smiled warmly at Naomi. "Hello there, sweetheart. Are you hungry? I just made fresh cookies." Naomi looked to her mother for permission, and Carla nodded with a small smile. "Yes, please. We haven't eaten since breakfast." As Mrs. Chin led them inside, Jonathan's phone rang. It was Detective Morrison with an update. "Pierce, we've got Crawford in custody for questioning, but his lawyer is already there. Without more evidence, we might have to release him in a few hours." Jonathan stepped away from the others, lowering his voice. "What about the security footage from the community center?" "That's the problem. Someone corrupted the files from yesterday afternoon. Very professional job. Right now, all we have is Nekome's testimony and the poison water bottle. And that's not enough against a man like Crawford with his resources and legal team. We need more. His lawyer is already claiming the crescent could have been planted by anyone, including you, to frame Crawford." Jonathan felt a surge of anger. "He tried to murder me and he's going to walk free. Not if we can find more evidence. Keep the girl safe. She's our key witness, and if anything happens to her, nothing will happen to her," Jonathan said firmly. "I give you my word." After ending the call, Jonathan found Naomi and Carla in the kitchen with Mrs. Chin, who had set out a plate of chocolate chip cookies and tall glasses of milk. "These are the best cookies ever," Naomi announced, chocolate smudging her cheek. Carla was sitting stiffly at the kitchen island, clearly uncomfortable with the luxury surrounding them. "Mr. Pierce, we need to talk about arrangements. I can't let you just take care of us without giving something back." "You already gave me something back," Jonathan replied, sitting across from them. "Naomi saved my life. That doesn't mean we become charity cases," Carla said, her pride evident in her voice. "I work 3 jobs to support my daughter. I'm not looking for a handout." Jonathan studied her for a moment, seeing the steel beneath her gentle exterior. "What kind of work do you do?" "I'm a night shift nurse at City General. I clean offices on weekends and I tutor kids in math 3 afternoons a week. I have an associate degree in nursing, but I'm working on my bachelor's degree through online classes. Mama's really smart, too," Naomi added proudly. "She helps all the kids in our building with their homework." Jonathan felt a growing respect for this woman who worked so hard to provide for her daughter while still finding time to help others. "What if I could offer you a job? A real job? Not charity?" Carla looked suspicious. "What kind of job?" "Pierce Industries has been looking for a community outreach coordinator. Someone to manage our charitable partnerships and educational programs. The position requires someone with medical knowledge, teaching experience, and understanding of community needs. It pays $60,000 a year with full benefits." Carla's eyes widened. "You're making that up." "I'm not. The position has been posted for 2 months and we haven't found the right person." "You're exactly what we've been looking for." Naomi bounced in her seat. "Mama, that means we could stay near Mr. Pierce." "Naomi, hush," Carla said, but Jonathan could see her mind working, calculating what this opportunity could mean for their future. "I'd want to earn it," she said. "Finally, no special treatment because of what happened." "Deal," Jonathan agreed, "but first we need to make sure Crawford doesn't try to hurt either of you." As if summoned by his words, Bernard appeared in the doorway with a grim expression. "Sir, we have a problem. Crawford made bail an hour ago, and our sources say he's hired private security, 3 men with military backgrounds." Carla went pale. "He's going to try to find us." Jonathan stood immediately. "Not on my property." Bernard increased security. "I want someone on Naomi and Carla at all times." "Already done, sir. And there's something else. Crawford's assistant, the one who gave Trevor the water bottle, has disappeared. Left town this morning without notice. He's covering his tracks." Jonathan realized removing witnesses. Naomi had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. "Mr. Pierce, were you scared?" Jonathan knelt down beside her chair. Speaking honestly, a little bit, yes, but I promise you nothing bad will happen to you or your mama while you're here. Do you trust me? Naomi nodded solemnly. I trust you. You have kind eyes like mama. Carla reached over and squeezed Jonathan's hand briefly. Thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay this. Help me become a better man, Jonathan said softly. Naomi already started that process when she saved my life. Maybe you can finish it. That evening, as Naomi explored the vast library with wonder and Carla settled into the comfortable guest suite, Jonathan stood in his study looking out at the darkened grounds. Security lights illuminated the perimeter, and he could see Bernard's team making their rounds. He had built an empire, accumulated more wealth than he could spend in several lifetimes, and commanded respect from business leaders around the world. But tonight, protecting a brave little girl and her mother felt more important than any deal he had ever made. Crawford would try to reach them. Jonathan was certain of that, but he was equally certain that he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. For the first time in years, he had something worth fighting for. 3 days into their stay at the estate, Naomi had already memorized the location of every book about animals in Jonathan's library and beaten him at chess twice. She sat cross-legged on the Persian rug in his study, carefully moving her pieces while he pretended to consider his next move. You're letting me win, she accused, looking up at him with those perceptive eyes. Jonathan chuckled. Maybe a little. Mama says lying is wrong, even nice lies. Your mama is right. He moved his knight, genuinely trying this time. Better, much better. Naomi studied the board seriously, then made a move that put his king in check. I learned that from a book about chess champions. Before Jonathan could respond, Bernard entered the study with Detective Morrison and a woman in a sharp business suit. Sir, Detective Morrison has some updates, and this is Agent Patricia Wells from the FBI. Carla appeared in the doorway, having heard the voices from the kitchen where she had been helping Mrs. Chin prepare lunch. FBI, what's happening? Agent Wells stepped forward. Mrs. Johnson, we believe Vincent Crawford's activities extend far beyond the attempt on Mr. Pierce's life. We've been investigating him for securities fraud, and this case might be the key to bringing down his entire operation. Jonathan gestured for everyone to sit. What have you found? Detective Morrison opened his tablet. Crawford's assistant, Julie Martinez, didn't just disappear. We found her car at the bottom of Riverside Quarry this morning. She's been murdered. Carla gasped and instinctively pulled Naomi closer. Oh my God. The medical examiner estimates she died the same night Crawford was released on bail. Agent Wells continued, he's eliminating witnesses, which makes Naomi even more valuable to our case. Naomi looked up from the chessboard where she had been quietly listening. The lady who gave the water bottle is dead. Yes, sweetheart. Detective Morrison said gently. That's why it's so important that you stay safe here with Mr. Pierce. But I saw the bad man's face, Naomi said matter-of-factly. I can tell other people what he looks like. Agent Wells leaned forward. Naomi, would you be willing to look at some pictures and see if you can identify the man you saw at the community center? Can Mama stay with me? Of course. Agent Wells spread out a series of photographs on the coffee table. Naomi studied them carefully, taking her time with each face. Finally, she pointed to one without hesitation. That's him, the man with the gray hair and the scar on his chin. He was wearing a dark blue suit that day. You're absolutely certain? Agent Wells asked. Yes, ma'am. I'm very good at remembering faces. Mama says I have a photographic memory. Agent Wells smiled. Your mama is right. That's Vincent Crawford. Jonathan had been watching the exchange with growing admiration for Naomi's composure and intelligence. At 8 years old, she was handling this situation with more grace than many adults would. What's our next step? He asked. We need Naomi's formal testimony. Detective Morrison explained, but we'll do it here with a child psychologist present to make sure she's comfortable. Carla stood up, pacing to the window. This is getting more dangerous. Maybe Naomi and I should go into witness protection or something. Mama, no. Naomi protested. I like it here. Mr. Pierce has been teaching me about business and Mrs. Chin shows me how to cook. I don't want to leave. Jonathan felt his heart clench at the thought of them leaving. Over the past few days, his empty house had become a home. Naomi's laughter echoed through the halls, and Kara's presence brought a warmth he hadn't realized he was missing. What if I increase security instead? He suggested. Make this place even safer than witness protection. Agent Wells considered this. Actually, that might be better. Crawford's resources are extensive, but they're not unlimited, and he doesn't know where you are. Plus, Bernard added, our security system here is military grade. We've got motion sensors, thermal imaging, and a direct line to local law enforcement. Crawford would need an army to get through our defenses. Carla looked torn between protecting her daughter and recognizing the stability this arrangement offered. Naomi, what do you think? Naomi walked over to Jonathan and took his hand. I think Mr. Pierce is good people like you always say about Mrs. Henderson at the center, and I feel safe here. Jonathan squeezed her small hand gently. I promise I won't let anything happen to either of you. There's something else, Agent Wells said. We've discovered that Crawford has been using his business relationships to launder money for several criminal organizations. If we can prove the murder attempt, it gives us leverage to flip some of his associates. You mean there are more bad guys? Naomi asked. Unfortunately, yes. But the good guys are working very hard to catch all of them. Detective Morrison stood to leave. We'll be back tomorrow with the child psychologist for Naomi's formal statement. In the meantime, stay alert. Crawford is getting desperate, and desperate men do dangerous things. After the officials left, Jonathan found himself alone with Carla while Naomi played with a puzzle Mrs. Chen had given her. Are you having second thoughts about staying? He asked quietly. Carla sighed. Every minute. But I look at Naomi and I see how happy she is here. She's learning things, feeling safe being a kid. We've never had that luxury before. What do you mean? I've been working multiple jobs since she was 2. She spent most of her childhood at daycare centers and with babysitters while I tried to keep us fed and housed. This is the first time she's had a stable adult paying attention to her dreams and interests. Jonathan felt a pang of guilt at his privileged life. She's an amazing kid. Carla, you've done an incredible job raising her. I've done my best, but it hasn't been enough. She's too smart for her school, too mature for kids her age, and I haven't had the resources to help her reach her potential. That could change, Jonathan said carefully. The job offer I mentioned is real, and there are excellent schools nearby that would challenge someone with Naomi's abilities. Carla looked at him with eyes that held both hope and fear. Why are you doing this, really? Jonathan thought about the question seriously. Because for the first time in my adult life I feel like I'm part of something meaningful. You and Naomi have given me a sense of purpose I never had before. And when this is all over, when Crawford is arrested and we don't need protection anymore, then I hope you'll choose to stay anyway, Jonathan admitted. Not because you need to, but because you want to. From the living room, they could hear Naomi singing softly to herself as she worked on her puzzle. It was a sound that had quickly become the highlight of Jonathan's day. I want to stay, Carla said quietly. That's what scares me the most. As night fell over the estate, security lights illuminated the grounds and guards made their scheduled rounds. Inside the house, a makeshift family was slowly forming, built on trust, gratitude, and the growing realization that sometimes the most important things in life come from the most unexpected places. But outside the gates, Vincent Crawford was planning his next move, and time was running out for all of them. The morning sun streamed through the breakfast room windows as Naomi carefully flipped pancakes under Mrs. Chen's watchful eye. She had insisted on making breakfast for everyone, claiming it was her way of saying thank you for their kindness. Very good, little one, Mrs. Chen praised. You have natural talent in the kitchen. Jonathan entered wearing a casual polo shirt instead of his usual business suit. Since Carla and Naomi's arrival, he had been working from home, conducting meetings via video conference and letting his executives handle the day-to-day operations. Something smells incredible in here, he said, accepting a cup of coffee from Mrs. Chen. Naomi made pancakes shaped like butterflies, Carla announced from her seat at the breakfast table. She was reading through employment documents that Jonathan's human resources director had sent over. And she's been up since 6 o'clock a.m. practicing. I wanted them to be perfect. Naomi explained seriously, carefully sliding a butterfly-shaped pancake onto a plate. Mrs. Chen taught me that cooking is like art. You have to put love into it. Jonathan accepted his plate with genuine appreciation. These look amazing, Naomi. Thank you. As they ate together, Bernard appeared in the doorway with his usual morning security update. All quiet on the perimeter, sir. No unusual activity detected overnight. Any word from Detective Morrison about Crawford's whereabouts? He's been staying at his penthouse downtown, but our sources say he's been making a lot of phone calls to unknown numbers. Could be hiring more help. Carla set down her fork, the mention of Crawford's name instantly dampening her mood. How long do you think this will go on? Jonathan reached across the table and briefly touched her hand. However long it takes, we're safe here and that's what matters. After breakfast, Jonathan surprised them both by suggesting a tour of the estate grounds. If you're going to be staying here, you should see everything. Plus, Naomi mentioned she likes gardens. They spent the morning exploring the various gardens, the greenhouse filled with exotic flowers, and the small stable where Jonathan kept 2 gentle horses. Naomi was fascinated by everything, asking endless questions and taking mental notes of every detail. Can we ride the horses? She asked, standing on the fence rail to get a better look at the beautiful mare named Luna. Maybe tomorrow, Jonathan promised. I'll have the stable manager give you a lesson if your mama approves. Can I really? Naomi turned to Carla with pleading eyes. If Mr. Pierce thinks it's safe, then yes, Carla agreed, smiling at her daughter's excitement. As they walked back toward the house, Jonathan's phone rang. It was Agent Wells with important news. Hi, we've made progress. One of Crawford's former associates has agreed to testify against him in exchange for immunity. Apparently, Crawford's been using his company to funnel money for drug cartels. That's good news, right? Very good. But it also makes him more dangerous. He knows his empire is crumbling and he's got nothing left to lose. Our intelligence suggests he's planning something big. Jonathan stopped walking, gesturing for Carla and Naomi to continue toward the house while he finished the call. What kind of something big? We're not sure yet, but he's been asking questions about your estate security system. Someone's been watching the property from the ridge about a mile away. Jonathan's blood ran cold. Are Carla and Naomi in immediate danger? Not as long as they stay inside the security perimeter. But Pierce, this guy is planning something. We've got federal agents positioned around your property now. But I need you to be extra careful. After ending the call, Jonathan caught up with Carla and Naomi near the main house. Carla took one look at his expression and knew something was wrong. What happened? She asked quietly. Crawford's getting desperate. Agent Wells thinks he might try something soon. Naomi, who had been chasing a butterfly, overheard the conversation. Is the bad man coming here? Jonathan knelt down to her level. He might try to, but remember what I promised you. Nothing bad will happen to you while you're here. We have lots of good guys protecting us. Like superheroes. Exactly like superheroes. And you know what makes you special. Naomi, you're brave like a superhero too. You saved my life. Remember? That afternoon, while Naomi napped and Carla reviewed her new employment contract, Jonathan found himself in his study making arrangements he never thought he'd need to make. He updated his will, made sure his lawyers had instructions for protecting Carla and Naomi if anything happened to him, and transferred a substantial sum into a trust fund for Naomi's education. Carla knocked on his study door around 4:00, entering with 2 cups of tea. Mrs. Chin thought you might need this, she said, setting a cup on his desk. Thank you. Jonathan accepted the tea gratefully, realizing he hadn't eaten or drunk anything since breakfast. Carla settled into the chair across from his desk. I signed the employment contract. I start Monday working from here until Crawford is caught. I'm glad. You're going to be wonderful at the job. Jonathan, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why don't you have a family, a wife, children? You're successful, kind, good-looking. She trailed off, seeming embarrassed by her own boldness. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, considering how to answer. I thought I did once. I was engaged 5 years ago to a woman named Rebecca. She was beautiful, sophisticated, everything I thought I wanted in a partner. What happened? I discovered she was only interested in my money. She had been cheating on me with my business partner while planning a wedding that would have cost more than most people make in a lifetime. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. She just laughed and said I should have known better than to think someone like her could love someone so boring. Carla's eyes flashed with anger. She sounds horrible. She was honest at least. It made me realize that I had never learned how to have a real relationship. I threw myself into work instead, convinced that business success was the only thing I could count on. And now, Jonathan looked toward the living room where they could hear Naomi's voice as she woke up from her nap, chattering to Mrs. Chen about her dreams. Now I'm beginning to understand why I've been missing. Carla reached across the desk and took his hand. Thank you for telling me that. And for the record, Rebecca was an idiot. Jonathan squeezed her hand gently. Thank you for that. And Carla, whatever happens with Crawford, I want you to know that having you and Naomi here has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. Even though we've turned your quiet life upside down, especially because of that. That evening, they established what would become their new routine. After dinner, they gathered in the living room where Jonathan taught Naomi chess strategies while Carla worked on her online nursing courses. The domestic tranquility felt natural, as if they had been a family for years rather than days. As Naomi got ready for bed, she surprised Jonathan by asking if he would read her a bedtime story. Mama always reads to me, but she's busy with homework tonight. Would you mind? Jonathan felt honored by the request. I'd love to. What would you like me to read? Something about brave people, Naomi said, settling under the covers in the beautiful guest bedroom that had quickly become hers. Jonathan chose a book about Rosa Parks, and as he read about courage in the face of danger, he couldn't help but think about the brave little girl listening intently beside him. Mr. Pierce, Naomi said sleepily when he finished. Yes, are you going to marry my mama? The question caught him completely off guard. That's not something for you to worry about. Sweetheart, I'm not worried. I think it would be nice. Then you could be my daddy for real. Not just pretend. Jonathan's heart nearly stopped. Naomi, do you want me to be your daddy? Hutch, you're nice to mama, and you're teaching me lots of things and you make us feel safe. That's what daddies do, right? That's exactly what daddies do, Jonathan agreed, his voice thick with emotion. Then I think you should ask mama to marry you. She likes you too, I can tell. Jonathan kissed her forehead gently. I'll think about it. Now get some sleep. As he turned off the light and closed Naomi's door, Jonathan found Carla waiting in the hallway with an amused expression. How much of that did you hear? He asked. Enough to know that my daughter has decided to play matchmaker. Are you upset about it? Carla stepped closer to him in the dimly lit hallway. Should I be? Instead of answering with words, Jonathan upped her face gently in his hands and kissed her. It was soft and sweet, filled with all the emotions that had been building between them over the past week. When they broke apart, Carla smiled. I guess that answers my question. Carla, I know this is all happening very fast. Fast doesn't mean wrong, she said softly. Sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them. What happens when Crawford is caught and this is all over? Then we figure out what comes next together. Jonathan pulled her closer, holding her in the quiet hallway of the house that was becoming their home. Outside, security guards continued their vigilant watch, protecting the family that was forming within these walls. But for now, in this moment, they were safe, they were together, and they were falling in love despite the danger surrounding them. Crawford could wait until tomorrow. Tonight was about hope, gratitude, and the promise of a future none of them had dared to imagine just a week ago. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to the estate. Jonathan was in his home office taking a video conference call with his board of directors when Bernard knocked urgently on the door. Sir, there's a woman at the gate claiming to be Naomi's grandmother. She says her name is Dorothy Johnson. Jonathan quickly ended his call and found Carla in the kitchen where she had gone pale at the mention of her mother's name. Mom is here, Naomi asked excitedly, looking up from the math worksheets Jonathan had printed for her. Grandma Dorothy, how did she find us? Carla asked, her voice tight with worry. Bernard checked his tablet. She says Detective Morrison gave her the address. Should I verify that? No need, Carla. If my mother is here, she's not leaving until she sees Naomi. You might as well let her in. 20 minutes later, Dorothy Johnson stood in Jonathan's foyer, taking in the opulent surroundings with obvious disapproval. She was a small woman in her 70s with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that missed nothing. Grandma, Naomi ran into her arms and Dorothy's stern expression immediately softened. There's my brilliant grandbaby, Dorothy said, hugging Naomi tightly. Are you all right? When that detective told me what happened, I caught the first bus here. I'm fine, Grandma. Mr. Pierce has been taking care of us really good. He has horses and a library with 50 books. Dorothy looked over Naomi's head at Jonathan with undisguised suspicion. Mr. Pierce, is it? And what exactly are your intentions toward my daughter and granddaughter? Mama, please, Carla interjected. Jonathan saved our lives. Did he now, or did he put you in danger in the first place? Jonathan stepped forward calmly. Mrs. Johnson, I understand your concern. If I were in your position, I'd be asking the same questions. Would you like to sit down so we can talk properly? They gathered in the living room where Mrs. Chen served tea and fresh cookies. Dorothy accepted the refreshments but continued to eye Jonathan warily. So you're some kind of billionaire? She said bluntly. I've been fortunate in business, yes, and now you're playing house with my family because you feel guilty. Mama, Carla protested, but Jonathan held up a hand. It's a fair question, he said. Mrs. Johnson, I won't lie to you. This situation started because someone tried to kill me and Naomi got caught in the middle by saving my life. But what's happening now? It's not about guilt or charity. Then what is it about? Jonathan looked at Naomi, who was sitting between her mother and grandmother, and then at Carla. It's about family, something I never had before and never thought I wanted until I met them. Dorothy studied his face carefully. You're in love with my daughter. Grandma, Carla's cheeks turned red. I am, Jonathan admitted without hesitation. And I'm hoping she might feel the same way about me. Dorothy turned to Carla. Do you? Carla looked around the room at the three people waiting for her answer. Yes, I do, but Mama, it's complicated. Love usually is baby girl. The question is whether this man is worthy of you and Naomi. Naomi spoke up unexpectedly. Grandma, Mr. Pierce reads me bedtime stories, and he's teaching me chess, and he makes Mama smile all the time, and he promised to keep us safe from the bad man. Dorothy's expression softened slightly. Is that so? And he offered Mama a really good job, and he says I'm smart enough to go to any school I want when I'm older. Naomi, Jonathan said gently, why don't you show your grandmother the library? I think she'd like to see all those books. After Naomi led Dorothy away, chattering excitedly about her favorite stories, Carla turned to Jonathan with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry about that. My mother doesn't trust easily, especially when it comes to men with money. She's protecting her family. I respect that. She raised me by herself after my father left when I was 10. She worked 2 jobs to put me through nursing school, and she's the one who taught me that I didn't need a man to take care of me. Jonathan nodded. She sounds like a remarkable woman, a lot like her daughter. The thing is, she's not wrong to be suspicious. I've been independent for so long that depending on someone else scares me. What if it wasn't about depending on me? Jonathan suggested. What if it was about us depending on each other? Before Carla could answer, they heard Naomi's voice echoing from the library, giving Dorothy a detailed tour of Jonathan's book collection. She's explaining the organization system to your mother. Jonathan noted with amusement. She memorized it in 3 days, Carla said proudly. My daughter has an incredible mind. She gets it from her mother. They found Dorothy and Naomi in the library where Dorothy was examining the chess set and listening to Naomi explain various strategies. This child is too smart for her own good, Dorothy declared. But her tone was filled with pride rather than criticism. That's what Mama always says. Naomi agreed cheerfully. Mr. Pierce, Dorothy said, turning to face him directly. I have some questions and I want honest answers, of course. Are you planning to use my granddaughter's testimony against this Crawford person? Only if it's absolutely necessary and only with proper protection for her. And what happens to Carla and Naomi when this is all over? That's up to them. I've offered Carla a legitimate job with my company and I'd like Naomi to attend the best schools available. But if they choose to leave, I'll make sure they have everything they need to start fresh somewhere safe. And if they stay, Jonathan looked at Carla, then back at Dorothy. Then I hope to spend the rest of my life making them happy. Dorothy was quiet for a long moment, studying both Jonathan and Carla's faces. Finally she spoke. Naomi, honey, why don't you show me that greenhouse Mrs. Shin mentioned? As Naomi led her grandmother outside, Dorothy turned back to Jonathan and Carla. I'll be staying for a few days to see how things go, she announced. If this is real, I'll know it. And if it's not, you'll take us home, Carla finished. That's right. But baby girl, if this man treats you and Naomi the way you deserve to be treated, then I'll give you my blessing. That evening, for generations sat around the dinner table as Mrs. Shen served a feast worthy of Sunday dinner at Dorothy's own house. The conversation flowed easily, with Dorothy sharing stories about Carla's childhood and Jonathan telling them about his various business adventures. You know, Dorothy said as they finished dessert, I was wrong about one thing. What's that, Grandma? Naomi asked. I thought rich people were all selfish and cold. But Mr. Pierce here, he's got a good heart. I can see it in how he looks at you and your mama. Naomi beamed. I told you he was nice. As they prepared for bed that night, Dorothy pulled Carla aside for a private conversation. That man loves you, baby girl. Really loves you. I know, Mama. And I love him too. Then what are you waiting for? I guess I'm scared it's too good to be true. Dorothy took her daughter's hands. Honey, you've been taking care of everyone else your whole life. Maybe it's time to let someone take care of you for a change. What if it doesn't work out? What if it does? Later that night, as Jonathan made his final security check with Bernard, he felt a sense of completeness he had never experienced before. Having Dorothy's approval meant everything to Carla, and earning it felt like the most important achievement of his life. Sir, Bernard said quietly, there's been no sign of Crawford for 2 days. Our sources think he might be planning to leave the country or planning something bigger. Jonathan replied, double the security tonight. I have a feeling this isn't over yet. As if in response to his words, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You can't protect them forever. I'm coming for what's mine. Jonathan immediately showed the message to Bernard, who began mobilizing additional security measures. Whatever Crawford was planning, it was happening soon. But as Jonathan looked up at the second floor where Carla, Naomi, and Dorothy were sleeping safely, he felt a fierce determination unlike anything he had ever known. They had found each other against all odds, and he would do whatever it took to protect this family they were building together. Crawford could come. Jonathan would be ready. At 3:47 a.m., the estate's motion sensors detected movement along the eastern perimeter. Bernard's security team immediately went into high alert, communicating through earpieces as they tracked multiple figures approaching through the wooded area beyond the fence. Jonathan was already awake in his study, unable to sleep after the threatening text message. When his phone buzzed with Bernard's alert, he felt his blood turn cold. Sir, we have at least 6 individuals approaching from 3 different directions. Professional movement patterns. This is it. Jonathan quickly pulled on clothes and made his way to the main security room where multiple monitors showed thermal images of the intruders advancing toward the house. Are they armed? He asked. Negative on weapons detection, but they're carrying equipment. Looks like electronic jamming devices and climbing gear. Jonathan's mind raced. Crawford was smart enough not to bring guns onto the property, knowing it would escalate the situation into a federal crime. But that didn't mean he wasn't dangerous. Get everyone to the safe room now, Jonathan ordered, and call Agent Wells. The safe room was a reinforced bunker Jonathan had installed in the basement when he first bought the estate. It had independent communications, supplies for a week, and walls that could withstand almost anything short of military explosives. Bernard and 2 other guards moved swiftly upstairs while Jonathan checked the security systems one more time. The intruders had stopped just outside the fence, apparently waiting for something. Upstairs, Carla was already awake when Bernard knocked softly on her door. Mrs. Johnson, we need to move to the secure area immediately. Bring only what you can carry. Carla's training as a nurse kicked in. Keeping her calm as she woke Naomi and Dorothy. Sweetheart, we need to go downstairs with Mr. Pierce. Remember what we practiced? Naomi nodded sleepily but didn't complain as Carla dressed her quickly. Dorothy, despite her age, moved with surprising speed and efficiency. Is it the bad man? Naomi asked as they made their way downstairs. We don't know yet. Baby, Carla replied, but we're going to be safe. They met Jonathan in the basement where the safe room looked like a small apartment with comfortable seating, a cabinet, and several monitors showing the security feeds. I'm sorry, Jonathan said as he sealed the door behind them. I hoped it wouldn't come to this. You have nothing to apologize for, Dorothy said firmly. That Crawford man is the one who should be sorry. On the monitors, they could see Crawford himself approaching the front gate with two men in dark clothing. He was speaking into a radio, apparently coordinating with the others positioned around the property. Bernard's voice came through the intercom from the main security room. Sir Crawford is at the front gate requesting to speak with you. He claims he just wants to talk. What do you think? Jonathan asked Agent Wells, who was now on speakerphone. It's a distraction. The real threat is the team moving toward the back of the house. Our federal agents are in position, but Crawford's people are good. This could get complicated. Naomi was watching the monitors intently. Why doesn't someone just arrest him? They need him to actually break the law first, sweetheart, Jonathan explained. Right now, he's just standing outside the fence, but he sent that mean text message. We can't prove he sent it, Agent Wells replied through the speakers. We need him to make a move. As if on cue, one of the thermal images showed a figure cutting through the perimeter fence. Alarms began sounding throughout the house. There's our probable cause, Agent Wells announced. Federal agents move in. What followed was a tense 20 minutes as they watched the monitors show FBI agents emerging from concealment and surrounding Crawford's men. There was no violence. The intruders surrendered immediately when faced with overwhelming federal presence. Crawford himself tried to run when he saw his plan failing, but Agent Wells personally tackled him in the driveway before he could reach his car. Ladies and gentlemen, Agent Wells announced over the radio, Vincent Crawford is in custody. The collective sigh of relief in the safe room was audible. Naomi immediately hugged Jonathan tightly. Is it over? She asked. It's over, Jonathan confirmed, hugging her back while reaching for Carla's hand. An hour later, they were back upstairs as federal agents processed the crime scene and led Crawford away in handcuffs. Through the front window, they could see him being placed in the back of an FBI vehicle. Agent Wells came to the house to give them a final update. Crawford's done, she announced. Between the attempted murder, the witness intimidation, the money laundering, and tonight's attempted kidnapping, he's looking at life in prison. Kidnapping? Carla asked sharply. That's what this was. His plan was to grab Naomi and use her as leverage to force you to disappear and stop cooperating with our investigation. One of his men already confessed in exchange for a plea deal. Dorothy put her arm around Naomi protectively. Thank God for your security system, Mr. Pierce. And thank God for federal agents who actually do their jobs, Jonathan added, shaking Agent Wells' hand gratefully. As dawn broke over the estate, the crisis was finally over. Crawford's criminal empire was crumbling and the danger to their family was ended. But the real question now was what came next. With no need for protection, would Carla and Naomi choose to stay or would they go back to their old life now that they were safe? Jonathan was afraid to ask, but he knew the conversation had to happen soon. So what now? Carla asked as if reading his thoughts. Now we figure out our future, Jonathan replied, looking at the three women who had changed his life forever. Together? Naomi asked hopefully. If that's what everyone wants, Jonathan said carefully. Dorothy smiled, the first completely relaxed expression they had seen from her since she arrived. Baby girl, I think you found yourself a good man. Carla looked around at the estate that had become their home, at the man who had protected them, and at her daughter who was already calling him daddy in her heart. Yes, she said simply. I think I did. As the sun rose fully over the estate, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jonathan Pierce realized that his life had been saved twice. Once by Naomi's quick thinking in the car, and once by the love of a family he never knew he needed. The business empire he had built would continue to thrive, but it was no longer the most important thing in his world. Family was 6 weeks after Crawford's arrest. Life at the Pierce estate had settled into a comfortable routine that felt as natural as breathing. Carla had officially started her job as community outreach coordinator for Pierce Industries, working primarily from the estate's converted office space. Naomi was enrolled in the prestigious Westfield Academy, where her brilliant mind was finally being challenged appropriately. Dorothy had returned to her own home but visited every weekend, having given her full approval to the relationship that was blossoming between her daughter and Jonathan. On a warm Saturday morning in early October, Jonathan found himself in the kitchen helping Mrs. Chen prepare Naomi's favorite chocolate chip pancakes while Carla slept in a luxury she had never been able to afford before. Mr. Pierce, Naomi said, sitting at the breakfast bar with her latest library book. Can I ask you something important? Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind? Are you going to ask Mama to marry you? Jonathan nearly dropped the spatula he was holding. Mrs. Chen chuckled quietly as she continued cooking. That's a very direct question, Jonathan said carefully. Grandma Dorothy says, direct questions get honest answers. So are you. Jonathan sat down beside her, setting aside the cooking duties for a moment. Would you like me to ask your mama to marry me? Yes, Naomi said immediately. Then you'd be my real daddy, and we'd be a real family forever. We're already a real family, Naomi. Marriage would just make it official. So you are going to ask her? Jonathan smiled. I'm thinking about it very seriously. Good, because I already picked out the perfect ring. Naomi announced, pulling out her tablet to show him a picture she had saved. Mrs. Chin helped me find it online. It's not too big and sparkly like the ones that fake lady probably liked. But it's beautiful and elegant like mama. Jonathan looked at the image of a classic solitaire diamond ring with a platinum band. It was perfect, exactly what he would have chosen for Carla. How did you know I didn't want something big and flashy? He asked. Because you know mama isn't like that. She likes pretty things but not show-off things. Jonathan was constantly amazed by Naomi's emotional intelligence. At 8 years old, she understood people better than most adults. If I did ask your mama to marry me, how do you think I should do it? Naomi's eyes lit up. I have lots of ideas. But first, you should ask Grandma Dorothy for permission. That's what gentlemen do. You're absolutely right. Would you like to help me plan it? Really? I can help plan a real proposal? I can't think of anyone I'd rather have as my partner in this. Jonathan said honestly. Their conversation was interrupted by Carla appearing in the doorway, wearing one of Jonathan's shirts over her pajamas and looking adorably disheveled. What are you two conspiring about? She asked, accepting the cup of coffee Jonathan immediately handed her. Secret stuff? Naomi said mysteriously. Right, Mr. Pierce, very secret stuff. Jonathan agreed, winking at Naomi. Carla looked between them suspiciously but didn't press. She had learned that Jonathan and Naomi's secret projects usually resulted in wonderful surprises. Later that afternoon, while Carla was taking a bubble bath and Naomi was napping, Jonathan called Dorothy. Mrs. Johnson, I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted to ask you something important. Let me guess. Dorothy's knowing voice came through the phone. You want to marry my daughter? Yes, ma'am. I love Carla and Naomi more than I ever thought possible. And I'd like to ask for your blessing to propose. You already have it. Son, you've proved yourself to be a good man who genuinely cares about their happiness. But let me give you some advice about the proposal. I'm listening. Don't make it about the money or the fancy things. Make it about the family you've become. That's what matters to Carla. I was thinking of proposing here at the estate somewhere meaningful to all of us. Good choice. And Jonathan, thank you for giving my girls the life they deserve. That evening, Jonathan began putting his plan into motion. Over the next week, he worked with Naomi to create the perfect proposal, incorporating elements that celebrated their journey together and their hopes for the future. The proposal would take place in the library where they spent so many evenings together. Surrounded by the books that had brought them closer, Naomi helped him select the perfect flowers, butterflies to match her favorite creatures. Mrs. Chin prepared Carla's favorite dinner, and Bernard ensured they would have complete privacy. On Friday evening, 1 week after his conversation with Dorothy, Jonathan felt his heart racing as he prepared to ask the most important question of his life. Carla, he said as they finished dinner, would you join me in the library? There's something I want to show you. Should I be worried? She asked with a smile. Definitely not worried, Naomi said, practically bouncing in her seat with excitement. In the library, soft music was playing and dozens of white roses were arranged throughout the room. Candles provided gentle lighting, and the chess set where Jonathan and Naomi had shared so many games was set up with a special message spelled out in chess pieces. Carla read the message aloud. Will you be my queen? When she turned around, Jonathan was on one knee, holding the ring Naomi had helped him choose. Carla Johnson, he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. 7 weeks ago, your daughter saved my life, but you both saved my soul. I never knew what love was until I met you, and I never understood the meaning of family until you and Naomi showed me. Tears were streaming down Carla's face as she listened. I promise to love you, protect you, and cherish every day we have together. I promise to be the best father I can be to Naomi, and to support your dreams the way you supported mine. Will you marry me? Yes, Carla whispered, then louder. Yes, of course, yes. As Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger, Naomi burst out from behind the bookshelf where she had been hiding to watch the proposal. Mama said, yes, she shouted, running to hug them both. Now we're really going to be a family forever. Jonathan swept both of them into his arms, feeling complete in a way he had never imagined possible. Forever and always, he promised. That night, as they called Dorothy with the good news and began making preliminary wedding plans, Jonathan reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. A little girl's act of bravery had led to a love story he never could have written himself. Crawford was in prison, the business was thriving, and he was engaged to the woman of his dreams, gaining a daughter who had already stolen his heart completely. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, a split-second decision by a brave 8-year-old could change everything. The wedding was planned for Christmas Eve, just 2 months away. As Jonathan and Carla dove into preparations, life seemed perfect at the estate. Naomi was thriving at her new school, Carla was excelling in her new position, and their love story was becoming the foundation for a beautiful future together. But on a gray November morning, Agent Wells called with disturbing news. Jonathan, we have a problem. Crawford escaped during a prisoner transport yesterday. Jonathan felt his blood turn to ice. How is that possible? I thought he was in maximum security. He was being transferred to federal court for another hearing. His transport vehicle was ambushed by what appears to be professional criminals. 2 guards are in critical condition. Jonathan immediately called for Bernard and activated the estate security protocols. How long has he been missing? 18 hours. We have every law enforcement agency in the state looking for him. But Jonathan, he left a message. What kind of message? He told one of the injured guards that he was coming to finish what he started. We think he's targeting your family again. Within an hour, the estate was surrounded by federal agents and local police. Jonathan gathered Carla, Naomi, and Dorothy, who had come for an early wedding planning visit, in the security room to explain the situation. So, the bad man is back? Naomi asked, her 8-year-old mind processing the information with surprising calm. He might try to be, Jonathan said carefully, but remember we beat him before and we'll beat him again. Why can't he just leave us alone? Carla asked, her protective instincts clearly heightened. Because he's lost everything, Agent Wells explained via video call. His company, his freedom, his reputation. In his mind, you're the reason for all of it. Dorothy, who had been quiet throughout the briefing, spoke up. How long until he's caught? Unknown, but he can't stay hidden forever. He's one of the most wanted men in America right now. As the day progressed, the tension in the house was palpable. Despite the heavy security presence, everyone felt on edge. Jonathan found himself checking the monitors constantly while Carla stayed close to Naomi. That evening, as they tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy with dinner together, Naomi made an unexpected observation. Mr. Pierce, you keep looking at the windows. Are you scared? Jonathan considered lying to protect her, but their relationship had been built on honesty a little bit. Yes, are you scared? Not really. I was thinking about something. What's that, sweetheart? The bad man keeps trying to hurt us because he thinks we ruined his life. But really, he ruined his own life by being bad, right? That's exactly right, Naomi. So maybe instead of being scared, we should feel sorry for him. He must be very sad and angry all the time. Jonathan exchanged a glance with Carla, both of them amazed by their daughter's wisdom and compassion. You know what, Naomi? You're absolutely right. Being angry and wanting to hurt people must be a terrible way to live. I hope when they catch him, someone helps him learn how to be good instead of bad. That night, Jonathan had trouble sleeping. He walked the halls of the estate checking locks and security systems, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Around 2 o'clock a.m., he found Carla in the kitchen making tea. Couldn't sleep either, she asked, offering him a cup. Too much adrenaline. I keep thinking about what Crawford might try next. Carla sat beside him at the kitchen island. Jonathan, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest always. Do you regret any of this? The danger we've brought into your life? The complications? The way everything changed so quickly? Jonathan took her hands and is looking directly into her eyes. Carla, meeting you and Naomi is the best thing that ever happened to me. Crawford tried to kill me before I even knew you existed. The danger isn't your fault. But if we hadn't been in your car that day, if you hadn't been in my car that day, I'd be dead. And I never would have known what it felt like to be part of a real family. Before Carla could respond, every alarm in the house began blaring simultaneously. Jonathan's phone immediately rang with a call from Bernard. Sir Crawford is here. He's alone and he's walking up the main driveway with his hands visible. No weapons detected. That doesn't make sense. What's he doing? Unknown, sir. But Agent Wells wants to talk to you immediately. Agent Wells' voice came through the security system speakers. Jonathan Crawford says he wants to surrender. But only to you personally. He claims he has information about other threats to your family. It's obviously a trap, Jonathan said. Probably, but he's outnumbered 52 and he knows it. We think he might actually be giving up. Carla gripped Jonathan's arm. Don't go out there. I won't leave the house, Jonathan promised. But I can talk to him through the intercom. They gathered in the security room where they could see Crawford standing in the circle of spotlights at the front gate. He looked chagrined and defeated, nothing like the confident businessman who had tried to kill Jonathan months ago. Jonathan activated the external speakers. Crawford, this is Jonathan Pierce. What do you want? Crawford's voice came through clearly, amplified by the sensitive microphones. I want to surrender. But first I need to warn you about something. What kind of warning? The people who helped me escape, they're not done with you. They have their own reasons for wanting you dead, reasons that have nothing to do with me. Agent Wells' voice cut in from another speaker. Crawford, if you have information about ongoing threats, you need to cooperate with federal authorities. I will, Crawford said, his voice breaking. I'll tell you everything, but Pierce, I need you to know. I'm sorry. What I did to your family, especially to that little girl. It was wrong. I lost my mind, and I'm sorry. Jonathan looked at Naomi, who had insisted on staying awake despite the late hour. She was watching the monitors with the same intense focus she brought to everything. Mr. Pierce, she said quietly, I think he really is sorry. Do you forgive him, Naomi? She considered the question seriously. Yes. Being angry doesn't help anybody. Jonathan activated the speakers again. Crawford, You're going to walk slowly to the federal agents. Keep your hands visible at all times. Thank you, Pierce. And take care of that little girl. She's special. As they watched Crawford surrender peacefully to federal agents, Jonathan felt a weight lift from his shoulders that he hadn't even realized he was carrying. Agent Wells remained at the estate for several more hours, debriefing them on Crawford's information about the criminal organization that had helped him escape. It turned out they were involved in international money laundering and had wanted Jonathan eliminated because his business practices were interfering with their operations. We'll have the whole network rounded up within a week, Agent Wells assured them. This time, the threat really is over. As dawn broke over the estate for the second time in 3 months under crisis conditions, the family gathered for breakfast with a sense of relief and closure. So Crawford really was sorry? Naomi asked, carefully spreading jam on her toast. It seemed like he was, Jonathan replied. Sometimes people do terrible things when they're scared or angry, and then they realize how wrong they were. Will he go back to prison? Yes, but now he'll get help. 2 doctors who can help him understand why he made such bad choices. Naomi nodded approvingly. Good, everyone deserves a chance to get better. Dorothy, who had been remarkably calm throughout the entire crisis, spoke up. Well, now that all the excitement is over, can we get back to planning this wedding? The room erupted in laughter, releasing all the tension of the past day. Yes, ma'am, Jonathan said, grinting. I think it's time to focus on our future instead of the past. As the security teams began standing down and life slowly returned to normal, Jonathan realized that they had passed their final test as a family. They had faced danger together, supported each other through fear, and emerged stronger than ever. Crawford's surrender had been unexpected, but it demonstrated something important. Even in the darkest circumstances, there was always hope for redemption and change. Looking around the breakfast table at his fiancée, his future daughter, and his future mother-in-law, Jonathan Pierce knew that no business deal or financial success could ever compare to the wealth he had found in this family. The best was yet to come. 1 year later, Christmas Eve. Snow fell gently outside the estate's chapel as guests gathered for the wedding of Jonathan Pierce and Carla Johnson. The small stone chapel on the estate grounds had been decorated with white roses and twinkling lights, creating a magical winter wonderland. Naomi stood at the altar beside Jonathan, serving as both ring-bearer and maid of honor. At 9 years old, she carried herself with the poise and confidence of someone much older, wearing a beautiful burgundy dress that matched the wedding colors perfectly. Are you nervous, Daddy? She whispered to Jonathan as they waited for Carla to walk down the aisle. A little bit, Jonathan admitted, but excited mostly. Me, too. I've been waiting my whole life for Mama to be this happy. The chapel doors opened and Carla appeared in a stunning but simple ivory dress, her arm linked with Dorothy's. She had never looked more beautiful, her face glowing with joy and love as she walked toward the altar. As they exchanged vows they had written themselves, there wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. Carla promised to be Jonathan's partner in all things, to support his dreams while pursuing her own, and to help him be the best father possible to Naomi. Jonathan promised to love and cherish both Carla and Naomi, to protect their family, and to never take for granted the miracle of their love. When it came time for the ring exchange, Naomi stepped forward with both rings, beaming with pride at her important role. With this ring, Jonathan said, slipping the band onto Carla's finger, I promise to love you for all my days. With this ring, Carla replied, I promise to build a beautiful life with you. By the power vested in me by the state, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The minister announced, you may kiss your bride. As Jonathan and Carla shared their first kiss as a married couple, Naomi clapped enthusiastically, causing the entire congregation to burst into laughter and applause. The reception was held in the estate's main ballroom, transformed into an elegant celebration space. During dinner, Jonathan stood to make a toast. A year ago, my life changed forever when a brave little girl saved me from drinking poison water. But what I didn't realize at the time was that she wasn't just saving my life. She was giving me a family, a purpose, and a love I never knew existed. He raised his glass toward Naomi, who was sitting at the head table between her new parents. Naomi, you taught me that real courage comes in small packages, and that the most important decisions in life often happen in split seconds. Thank you for having the bravery to grab my hand that day. Turning to Carla, his voice became even more emotional. Carla, you taught me what unconditional love looks like. You showed me that family isn't about blood or biology. It's about choosing to love someone every single day. Thank you for choosing me. The guests applauded warmly as Jonathan concluded his toast. Then, to everyone's surprise, Naomi stood up with her own glass of sparkling cider. I want to make a toast, too, she announced with characteristic confidence. Last year I was just a little girl with a single mama who worked really hard to take care of me. Now, I have a mama and a daddy who love each other and love me, and a grandma who visits every weekend, and Mrs. Chen, who teaches me to cook, and Bernard, who's teaching me about security systems. The adults chuckled at her comprehensive list. But most importantly, Naomi continued, I learned that families can come together in mysterious ways. Sometimes God sends bad people to help good people find each other. So, thank you, Crawford, wherever you are, for helping me find my daddy. The toast was so unexpected and wise that the entire room fell silent for a moment before erupting in applause. Jonathan wiped away tears as he hugged his new daughter. Later that evening, after the guest had gone home and the estate had returned to its peaceful quiet, the new family of three sat together in the library, still wearing their wedding clothes. But with shoes kicked off and ties loosened, Mrs. Pierce, Jonathan said to Carla, testing out her new name. I like the sound of that, she replied, curling up against his side. What about you, Naomi Pierce? Jonathan asked. How does that sound? Naomi had been officially adopted the month before, and she grinned at hearing her new name. Perfect. Everything is perfect. What do you want to do tomorrow? Carla asked. It's Christmas Day, and we have nowhere we have to be. Can we just stay home and be a family? Naomi requested. Maybe play chess and read books and let Mrs. Chen teach me to make Christmas cookies. That sounds like the perfect Christmas to me. Jonathan agreed, as they sat together in comfortable silence, watching the snow continue to fall outside the library windows. Jonathan reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Vincent Crawford was serving a life sentence in federal prison, where he was reportedly participating in anger management and rehabilitation programs. His criminal network had been completely dismantled, ensuring that no further threats would emerge from that situation. Pierce Industries was thriving under Jonathan's continued leadership, with the company's charitable foundation now focusing heavily on education and child welfare programs inspired by Naomi's story. Carla had been promoted to Director of Community Outreach after implementing several innovative programs that had gained national attention. She was also expecting their second child, a baby boy due in the spring. And Naomi was excelling in every area of her life. She had skipped ahead 2 grades in school and was already being courted by universities with early admission programs for gifted children. But more importantly, she was a happy, well-adjusted child who felt secure in her family's love. Daddy, Naomi said sleepily from her position curled up in the big armchair. Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad I grabbed your hand that day. Me too. Baby girl, me too. As the clock struck midnight, officially making it Christmas Day, Jonathan Pierce looked around at his wife and daughter and felt the profound contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. A year ago, he had been a successful but lonely businessman with no real purpose beyond accumulating wealth. Now, he was a husband and father, part of a family built on love, trust, and the courage of a little girl who saw danger and refused to stay silent. Sometimes the best things in life came from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, a split-second decision by a brave 8-year-old could change everything forever. Merry Christmas, my family, Jonathan whispered as they dozed together in the library, surrounded by thousands of books and infinite possibilities for their future. Merry Christmas, Daddy, Naomi whispered back, and it truly was.